In this episode, I interview Kal and Dan from Sounder FM about the future of discovery for podcasters. If you're looking for a new way to get discovered and grow your audience, you're not going to want to miss this episode. So 2020 was supposed to be the year of the hoverboards. It was supposed to be hover cars, self-lacing shoes, and it's not really turned out to be the year that we thought it would be. However, podcasting recently hit 1 million creators, and there's a huge growth phase right now for podcasting. We're all stuck at home, and you have the opportunity now to create. And Sounder FM is what I think to be the leader in the future of podcasting. So I wanted to thank you guys for building a platform like this. What are your thoughts on the podcasting industry right now as it stands this moment in time?
For us, if you look at podcasting, both Kal and I came from Google in the very early days. And if you look at podcasting today and then go back to 1999, 2000, there's a lot of similarities. Back in 1999, 2000, you had a lot more content being added to the web. As more and more content was added to the web, it became a lot harder to discover new content. And that's one of the reasons why Google was so successful, is they had a better algorithm to take all of this content and make it really more easily discoverable. If you looked at monetization even back then, it was top 1% of publishers, top 1% of really advertisers could communicate. If you also look back then, you had a lot of users, a lot more users being added as the proliferation of the web, different devices, mobile became better. All of that made for interesting business models to occur. We're seeing that within the audio space as well. To your point, Travis, over 500,000 new podcasts have been added to the ecosystem so far this year, and we're not even done yet. You have a lot more of the creators that are just starting out who are becoming, maybe they were hobbyists before, but they're starting to turn into more of a business and starting to figure out ways to make more money. However, there's some challenges there with back to that 1% to the 1% in 1999, 2000 of advertisers and publishers. Same for the podcast industry. And then a big thing that we've seen where we see the future of podcasting is just like everyone had a blog, every business had a blog, every person and every business will also have a podcast. Right now it takes roughly 4 hours to produce 1 hour of quality audio content. That should be 1-to-1. That will be the future. As we're talking, there will be technology and integrations going on in the background that will actually do pre and post production as we're talking. So that's the ultimate goal. That might be 5-10 years down the road, but podcasting is going to be massive, just like the web was massive in 1999, 2000.
I love that. Kal, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, no, I think Dan nailed it. I would say what's interesting is that, what we talk about internally is the fact that podcasting has really been an art form for the last, let's say, decade or so, and it's finally becoming a real business. And what you've seen over the course of the last 3 years is a lot more effort and energy being put into actually how to create this medium to be much more sustainable, much more structured, and really focus on helping creators, not only develop an audience, but also start to generate an income or revenue for the content that they're creating. And that's part of what we're so excited by, right? If you think about the overall opportunity, the podcasting market has been so fragmented for quite some time. And for a creator, identifying tools and services to build your content and then to market it, to promote it, to measure, obviously all the way down to monetize it, it's been challenging. And I think our job here is to make that a lot easier for everyone. And our starting point is really around discovery. But based on what Dan just said, our idea here is that we want to make it very intuitive, make it very, very easy for creators to actually have an ability to not only manage their content, but ultimately get in front of the right audience so they can grow their listenership and then ultimately monetize that content as well.
That's amazing. So we're going to talk more about the features that are involved in Sounder. I've been in the industry for about 7 years, and my whole goal in life is to help podcasters to find their voice, grow their audience, and start their own movement. But I want to talk a little bit about your mission, which is this is something I read online today, which I absolutely love. I wrote it down. We created Sounder to ensure publishers, creators, and platforms of all sizes to win. Audio should be for all, and we know everyone has a story to share. I've tried almost every single podcast host, and I recently launched this podcast with Sounder FM, and I just have to say, it's the best host out there. I love the fact that you guys are starting now because you've improved upon you make all the other hosts almost look archaic, like a 97 GeoCities website. I go in, it's futuristic, it's easy to use, and then we're going to talk more about the tools. But if you want to elaborate more on your mission, I think that's very important because I don't think every podcast host has the same ideals that you two do as startup founders. And I'd like people to know that there's two people behind this that actually genuinely care about podcaster success.
Yeah, and it's really important to us. When Dan and I first started talking about building the company, we built the company on a set of core beliefs. And one of the beliefs is that as you see the market growing, and as I mentioned, we talk about the fact that it's becoming more of a business rather than just an art form. What we're seeing is that the systems and the platforms are becoming more and more closed, right? So you're seeing some bigger companies really take a lead position in terms of podcast creation, podcast ownership, and it's becoming much more of an exclusive group rather than something that's truly open field. And what we believe in is giving everybody a chance to be successful, right? Again, if you think about there's this, I guess it's somewhat famous slide now that the top 1% of creators, on average, they generate about 30,000 downloads per episode, but the median is 124, I believe. And there's this massive disparity between the top 1% and everybody else within the podcasting space. And our job really here is to help everyone grow, right? How do we actually get that audience number to go up? And, helping to connect creators with the people who actually have an interest in what they have to say. So that's a big part of our mission. And yeah, I think, for us, keeping the entire ecosystem open and not closed, and actually helping to foster innovation. And that comes with working with creators, it comes with working with developers, and it comes with working with existing companies in the space so we can provide the best experience for the most important part of this journey, which is really the creator.
Well said. Yeah, so let's talk about the reasons why people should be paying attention to Sounder FM. First of all, most podcast hosts immediately out the gate, they want you to pay for server space. And a Sounder FM account comes with really no strings attached. You're able to start creating right away. But what people might not know about Sounder FM is that you guys, and you mentioned innovation earlier, and that's a very key word. You've really innovated a lot of things for podcasters, mainly in the way people can get discovered. And I really like that because it's easy to start a podcast, but it's difficult to get discovered. And you guys have set up a platform that allows people to use built-in tools to start getting discovered everywhere. And a couple of those that I'd like to have you guys elaborate on, because you're the geniuses behind this, is in audio search functionality and audio SEO.
Let's start with the history, because I think this will put everything into context. You mentioned innovation. We strongly believe that even personal frustration really is the catalyst to innovation. So if we can solve our own personal frustrations within the podcasting space, we believe that there's a big mass market opportunity there to help others do the same. And as it relates to what we call in-stream audio search, and the reason why this even came up is I was actually personally looking on Apple Podcasts. There's a term called 1031 exchange, which is a real estate investment term. And I went to Apple Podcasts, typed in 1031 exchange, and Apple would deliver me the results that they thought were the most relevant to my intent. The problem was, even though it was relevant, it took about 40 minutes of me listening to the entire episode before they talked about 1031 exchanges. And I thought, why not develop technology that would understand the spoken word and send the listener to that precise location within the audio. And we built that out. We built our entire transcription service. So Travis, as you know, one of the things that we offer is free transcription for all creators. That transcription is the foundation that really powers all of the other discovery tools within the discovery tool set. For example, every single creator gets a podcast page on Sounder, and all of your episodes are there. If someone is searching for a term or a brand or a location or a phrase or whatever that might be, we in real time look at all of the audio content, find the most relevant pieces of that content, and then send the listener to that precise location. So this is taking discovery to a whole new level where you may not be interested in a particular podcast, but rather a particular topic that you didn't know existed that was out there, and the engagement starts to increase.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, back to our belief system, Travis, we again, with the proliferation of audio, as Dan mentioned, we estimated getting to 1 million at some point by the end of this year, million podcasts in the ecosystem. It's much bigger than that, as we already know. Think about the next year or the next 5 years. We're talking about millions and millions of podcasts and hundreds of millions of shows or episodes, right? And not every single podcast has to be a story, right? It can be more informational or educational. And the idea there is that we believe that there will be this shift in consumer behavior, that while there's always going to be discovery of new podcast shows and of new episodes, the idea of finding that specific topic or that specific clip that interests you, coming in, listening to it, and moving out is really, really important, right? Like most people don't have 40 minutes or even 20 minutes these days to sit and listen to a full episode. So what they're doing is they're coming in when they can. This idea of in-stream audio search is finding that specific topic, phrase, keyword, whatever it may be, what you're looking for, retrieving the information and then going back to doing what you were doing. So we think it's going to be a pretty big shift in consumer behavior. As with anything new, unless you educate the consumer and also the creator, that just takes time. And we think we're kind of ahead of the curve on this one. And at some point here in the near future, many more people will be searching for their specific needs within all this audio content that's being created.
I love it. So earlier I mentioned we don't have hoverboards and we don't have self-lacing shoes, but this is definitely the future for all podcasters. And it doesn't matter if you have a comedy show with your friends or if you're a ketogenic diet nutrition specialist. When people are able to find the topics that they're interested in and start to consume you quicker, and you're saving people time, they're more likely to discover you and fall in love with you. So, you can sign up for a Sounder FM account today and get that free transcription, like Dan mentioned, which is basically another entire service that podcasters are paying for outside of their podcast host, in addition to paying for their podcast host. And you're going to get a free page for your podcast. So a professional, beautiful looking page. Now, your website is beautifully designed. It's very, I don't want to say minimal, but it's very futuristic, like I mentioned before. It's super easy to navigate, and you can launch a podcast on this thing in a matter of minutes. Was that something that you spent a long time on designing that user experience? Were you frustrated with other podcast host user experiences?
Yeah, and I'll start this off, but Dan, feel free to jump in. We've got a, part of my language, but a kick-ass UX designer. His name is Marciano, and he's done a great job of really building out not only our presence within our marketing website, but throughout the entire platform, working very closely with our front-end and technology teams. I think, going back to beliefs, the other thing that we've learned through our career is that speed is of the essence, right? And, when you think about search and how quickly some of the bigger search providers out there, not naming any names, provide you results, they're milliseconds, right? If you think about playing music on a streaming platform, music comes back instantaneously. And in our experience, we want to do the same thing. We want to get the creator on board, get them to actually have their content on our platform as quickly as possible. So either uploading your content, importing your content, and then get you through like the the nuts and bolts as quickly as possible. So you can focus on two things, helping to really drive more discovery and also create quality content. Like ultimately, that's what we want creators to focus on, right? Building great quality content for their audience. And then our job is to make it easy throughout the process and then ultimately help you drive more discovery so you can grow that audience for all that content that you just created. So yeah, speed is kind of like built into kind of our DNA. And it's important that we actually do this as quickly as possible and as intuitively as possible as well.
That's amazing. So you guys both have a background at Google. Something that I think a lot of podcasters might need to know is how can they rank in Google?
Yeah, so you had mentioned this earlier around audio SEO. So it's a great time for exactly what we're doing, right? So what we've learned and we've seen, obviously, if you go to Google, you're searching today, you start to see that there's almost like a one box that actually shows you all of the audio content based on your search query. We think that this is a perfect time to really start to bring audio into the fold. And our job is to leverage all of our great technology, as Dan mentioned, when you look at our transcription, when you look at the metadata and helping to provide suggestions and data back to the creator to further optimize their content for search engines such as Google. And we've just started that journey as a part of this launch that we had in June, our new release. And so far, the results have been pretty, I would say, substantial. And we've seen the fact that our content is being indexed, properly, and you're starting to see the fact that our content is showing up within the search engine. So it's stage one for sure, early days of audio SEO, but ultimately the cool thing about this is that the search engines are really taking audio much more seriously, and we have a solution that really helps creators, again, of all sizes, have their content further optimized for search engines. And without that, like discovery gets really, really challenging, because I think if I'm not mistaken, Google owns like 92 to 93% of the searches globally, right, worldwide. So we think that's important that we have solutions that can help creators meet the users or listeners where they are.
Awesome. So you guys are not only innovators of podcasting, but I actually spend a lot of time talking to employees of Sounder FM, and you guys have a really great company culture. I've talked to many different people that work there, and you're all very passionate, but you guys are actually creators yourself. And I heard from a little birdie that you guys have a podcast that might be launching soon. You want to share anything about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, Dan, why don't you share what you've already started, and then we can talk about what we're going to be doing together.
Yeah, so actually one of the podcasts that I recently started is called The Big Exit. And I actually interview founders that have built and sold their companies for at least over $25 million. So there's I thought a big need within the market of educating entrepreneurs. It's not all rosy. You might read a TechCrunch article and say, oh, so-and-so just sold their company for $58 million. Anyone can do it. It's hard. It takes a lot of effort and work. And The Big Exit really talks to these founders, and they tell the story in their own words of how they went from zero to exit, in some cases in a relatively short amount of time.
That's amazing. Yeah, because if you don't have an exit plan for your business, you're basically digging your own grave there. The exit plan is really something that entrepreneurs need to think of. So that's really cool. I'm going to definitely check that out. So what's the combined podcast?
Yeah, so we Dan and I really, back to how we both grew up in think the Google environment, but just in our DNA, it's all about eating your own dog food, right? So the fact that we're building all of these tools and services for creators, we thought it was important that we actually put out something, as a podcast of our own. So we're going to be focusing on trending topics within the podcasting space. Really, we'd love to have you on as a guest when we get it up and running, Travis. But really talking about, what's happening in the space, how we see this transformation that's happening, both for smaller creators all the way through some of the bigger platforms and publishers, but really another just point of reference for creators as we continue to evolve and as the industry continues to evolve.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations. And I'm glad that you are also a creator, because you're going to start to figure out the things, the bottlenecks, and keep improving Sounder FM. I'm sure you have a very healthy roadmap. Is there anything coming? I know you guys just did a major update to Sounder. Is there anything coming in the near future in Sounder FM as far as updating or more products on the platform?
Yeah, I'll kick it off here, but Dan, I definitely want you to jump in on this too. We are excited to live up to our mission, right? So the mission, if you think about all the components that bring it together, it's about being a platform for all. It is about helping creators grow their audience, but it's also to generate some level of revenue for the content that they're creating. So monetization is really the big next step forward for us. We're very excited about a partnership that we have in place with one of our larger, I would say, host-read ad providers, and that's going to be something we're going to be out in the press with shortly. And we're also implementing our first dynamic ad insertion solution as well. So think about, end of Q3, which is not that far away, we will be able to start serving advertising into content and helping creators make money for the content they've created. By the way, all of this will be up to creator choice. We are big fans of creator choice. You don't have to have ads in your content if you don't believe in ads. We will give every single creator the choice. And if they want advertising in their content or in their podcast, certainly we want to help them do that. But overall, we think that monetization helps really fulfill a big part of this mission of not just helping creators with finding audience, but also helping them to make some sort of revenue for the content that they're creating as well.
That's awesome.
And Travis, actually, one of the things that we just launched, and you may not be aware of this, but we just launched this last week. We got a lot of feedback from creators who they might have their own website, their own WordPress. They might do posts, and they wanted the ability to share snippets of marketing moments on Twitter, Facebook, and so forth. But instead of the listener clicking in Twitter and coming over to Sounder, they wanted them to go to their brand and their own link, right? So we actually launched that last week, where you can actually send traffic directly back to your WordPress page or whatever it might be to that precise location within the audio player to increase engagement, page views, revenue, whatever it might be. And to our knowledge, nothing else out there exists.
Yeah, that I did see that rolled out, and I hadn't had time to experiment with that, but that's amazing. And it's just another example of, the future. I guess future would be one of the key words that I think of when I think of Sounder FM, is all these innovations, all these tools for podcasters, a great mission. And I'm a big fan, and I just made a video that I was wrong about the best podcast host, and now people know which one that I think is the best host. This has been an incredible conversation. I kind of want to wrap it up here with just a few questions to get to know you guys on more of a personal level.
Sure.
Because, I feel like you've done a great job of describing the mission and all the features. And now I want to let people go run and try those. But I want to let them get to know you a little more as just human beings. So I've got a couple questions I've got loaded from Pod Decks, and either one of you can jump in and answer them. But I just I'm curious about you guys. If you could look through one person's email without them knowing, whose email would you look through?
That's a great question.
Most people say the president, and I always tell them, well, you just got to go to his Twitter account and you'll see everything about it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was going to say the president, but I would say, Dan, why don't you take this? I have to think about this one a little bit.
Anyone stick out from the big exit? You're obviously interviewing some pretty high level people.
Nothing comes to mind. I was going to say Hillary Clinton, of course, yeah. But it's a really thought-provoking question. I was going to say my wife, but she'll listen to this, and that would be really bad.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that.
That'd be a lack of trust.
I'd probably like to see Joe Rogan's emails. I think that would be an interesting little read as far as what comes into Joe Rogan's ecosphere.
Yeah,
I would say Elon Musk. If I would have to narrow it to one person, Elon Musk would be interesting.
Yeah, but he's probably got Neuralink set up, so he doesn't even send emails. They just arrive in his head.
That's right.
Kind of piggybacking off that question, who would you most like to sit next to on a 10-hour flight? So you get on a flight, you sit next to him, and you've got this person sort of captivated for 10 hours. Anyone that comes to mind?
I mean, is this past, present, or again, can we think of just historical figures?
No rules. It could be anybody you want. It could be fictional. It could be real life. Anyone you want, Kal.
Yeah, I would say Mahatma Gandhi. I think it's obviously just big believer in some of the historical figures that have really shaped the world, and obviously one of the biggest is Mahatma Gandhi. So that would, for me, would be a big one.
It's a great answer.
I would actually say living today, Ray Kurzweil, who is a futurist. If for those of you listening who haven't read his most recent book, or I guess it's 10 years old now, is The Singularity is Near. He has about an 84% success rate of forecasting the future based upon where Moore's law and where technology is going. And he would be fun to sit next to for 10 hours.
Yeah, that I've watched a documentary about him, and I obviously know his synthesizers because I'm a musician and all that. But
Cool.
I think his goal is just to try to live long enough to get to the singularity right now. I think I sometimes think about that, like, are we close enough yet? Because I'm sure that's something he's thinking about. What's something weird that you recommend everyone tries at least once? My answer is Bikram yoga. I think it's a challenge. It puts you in a very uncomfortable place, and it's a little weird. It smells like feet, but it's something I think that everyone should get in there and like suffer for a little bit and learn something about yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if this is weird, but I've only done it once in my life. I definitely want to do it again, and that's jumping out of a plane, skydiving. So I did it in January 1st, 1999. So was with a bunch of friends. We had gone out for New Year's Eve and then decided the next morning that we were going to jump out of a plane. And we did. It was one of the best experiences of my life. So if you get a chance to skydive, and if you haven't, definitely recommend it.
Okay.
Kyle, it's funny because I was going to say the exact same thing. So my wife is, she's just afraid of heights. And I read a book that said, if you want someone to say yes, especially if you're proposing, you should make them scared. So I actually drove her north in north of Denver. We got on a plane. I jumped out first, recorded her reaction. Obviously it was tandem, and proposed to her. When I landed first, and she said yes. So
wow.
She said that was the scariest thing I ever did, but the best thing I ever did. So I would agree with Cal.
That's a great bonding experience. I am deathly afraid of heights, so I don't know if I'll be jumping out of a plane anytime soon. I like gravity in the ground, so I think I'm just going to stick here. What is something that you hate but wish that you loved? I hate Excel spreadsheets, so that's my answer.
I hate working out.
Okay. You like it when it's done, though? You like when you've like finished the workout? Yeah. What's your least favorite workout move? I hate squats.
I would say, squats are pretty, reverse squats.
Reverse squats?
Or lunges. Yeah, reverse lunges.
Yeah, for me, it's running. I hate running, but I do it. So, after like the third or fourth mile, I'm like, I'm exhausted, but it's something you just need to do. But I hate it, but that's one for me for sure.
Okay. What's something that people are obsessed with, but you just don't get the point of?
I don't even know the name of the show, but it's on Netflix. I think it's with Joe Exotic. So
Tiger King.
I know that was a bit of a trend, I think, when we all kind of went into lockdown.
Yeah.
But never really understood the connection there.
I think that's like one of those cultural, like, you're peeking into a window, and I do think that the lockdown had a lot to do with the success of that documentary.
I think you're probably right.
Because everyone was just sort of in that chaos mode, and that was something that we could all look at and say, like, well, at least that's not my life, right? I'm just stuck here. So how about you, Dan?
I mean, putting on my investor hat, back in 2008, I thought it was ridiculous how people were so obsessed with renting out their rooms to complete strangers. And why would anyone ever want to invest in a company called Airbnb? Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
It goes to show sometimes I think being obsessed with something, and I mean, this happens with baseball cards and stuff that I may not understand, or comic books, but there is a very, very large market. And sure enough, sharing your room or your house or your condo became a really big business.
Yes, it did. It's probably similar to when people thought about Uber, and they're like, why would I have somebody drive a car and drive people around? And here we are, with these ginormous tech companies. My biggest regret is I had a mentor who was into the stock market, and I was like, what do you think about Amazon stock? It's about $250 a share. And he's like, I never buy a share of anything over $200. And here we are, and it's like $3,500 a share. And if I wouldn't have listened to him, I would be in the same place I am, but with a little more money in the stock market. All right. Last question. This has been really fun. I feel like I gotten to know you guys a little better, and I would like to podcast again with you soon. What's something I would never guess about you?
Oh, that's easy for me. I just told Kal yesterday. I actually have I have 8.5 toes.
Wow. 8.5 toes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're missing some pinky toes?
Yeah. The big one, when I was about 2 years old, my parents put me on a motorcycle with my sister, who's 13, on the back. I fell asleep, and it went into back then you had a chains.
Oh, chains.
Right.
Okay.
And I think it was a little 50cc, and it could have been a lot worse, but that's something that some people don't know about me. And I was separately, I was kidnapped in Venezuela in 2000 during the Chavez administration. It was fun, but that's probably for another podcast.
That's a whole podcast episode right there, my friend. Wow. So does the toe thing affect your balance at all, or is it pretty much just
not at all?
You grew up like that?
Yeah.
Your parents must have really had to pay you back for that. I mean, they must have been mortified.
Yeah. They did some crazy stuff. They let the kids do whatever we wanted, and there you go.
I mean, I imagine like you could just do whatever you wanted and say, "Well, I have 8.5 toes," and they could just have to be like, "So, okay, you're right. You can."
Believe me, I still do it today. I still do it, even to my older sister who was behind me. I keep saying, and she's 55. Why did you let me get on the motorcycle with you?
Yeah. Kal, anything?
There you go. I feel like after those stories, I'm super boring. So I don't think I have anything. Wow, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have anything I can share at the moment.
Okay, all right. Well, this has been amazing. Again, I applaud you guys for innovating podcasting. I think we're in I still think we're in the early stages of a huge boom, and now we have a tool that can help podcasters get discovered, have equal footing to everybody. I loved your comment about the 1%. I didn't know those stats, so I learned something very important today. I appreciate your time, and I'm going to be continuing to sing the praises of Sounder FM going forward. And is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with going out?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Travis, not only for the time today, but also for being, a big proponent of what we're trying to do here, and being our partner through this journey. So just excited to have you on the platform, excited to be here today. So thanks again. How do I get one of those sweet hats?